There's help on the horizon. What does that look like as the Chiefs look to bounce back from their loss to the Bills today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're brought to you by PrizePicks. Get over there to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL. And you're going to get super simple $50 instantly when you play $5. Go check it out at PrizePicks. We have a lot of prizes to go over because the Chiefs are getting a couple of presents. I'm going to call them prizes today. It's going to be perfectly fine. We're going to have a good time. Matt Derrick is here from ChiefsDigest.com, from inside the facility, from inside the inner circle, to give us all the lowdown on all of our hopes, dreams, and crazy thoughts. I might have a few of those as well. Make sure you check him out on ChiefsDigest.com. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, host of this show for going on 8 years. You can find me at NFL33.com, where you might hear something about the craziness that is the New York Jets, as well as RGR Football, further breaking down the Chiefs. Check those out. If you wouldn't, check out, even though Chris isn't here today, KC Chiefs Corner is where you can get his work. Matt, I'm kind of excited because this feels like just like shake off, take the hat off, let that wind blow through your hair. Not that I have any longer. And just kind of like take a breath and get ready for the second phase of the season, like I'm calling it. What are the possibilities for that, given we have a couple of guys in Isiah, Pacheco, and Charles Omenihu who might be getting closer to being on the field?
Yeah, the crazy thing is I've been going over some of the Chiefs numbers this morning and this afternoon, and I mean, one of the crazy things is that, you really look at the Chiefs this season, they're not that dissimilar to last year's Chiefs. I mean, in so many different ways. I mean, you certainly you look at the offense's performance, Mahomes' performance in particular, even the way that the receivers are breaking down at this point. The run game's a little bit better. The defense is about the same, maybe a little weaker in a couple of areas, but it's been hanging in there. But the journey has been completely different. I mean, this year, the same point last year, I mean, you didn't have nearly as much optimism. I mean, there obviously were a few more losses, but what's really remarkable to me is just that, I mean, there seems to be so much more pessimism around this week for a 9-1 football team, and picking at the little faults and everything. And Andy Reid, nobody in this organization needs me to be their defender, but I'm just like, maybe it's just being so close to this team over the years, and particularly last year's experience. Why get worked up over what's happening in the regular season? Because this team, they know it doesn't matter until January. You even looking at this Buffalo game, Buffalo was a lot more excited to win this game than the Chiefs were disappointed to win this game. This was another game to the Chiefs. This was not another game to Buffalo. And that's just a microcosm of what the Chiefs season is like, and it has been the last couple of years. You're going to get everybody's best shot every game. So, you can't get up for every single week. And there was no doubt this game meant more to Buffalo than it did to Kansas City. It's the same thing's going to be true every game the rest of the way. And, I don't see this team, I guess, in the same way that, they really worry about wins and losses. I mean, do they get disappointed when they lose? Sure, absolutely. But that was not a devastated team on Sunday. That was a team that sees the big picture. And Patrick Mahomes, reiterated it. Beating the Buffalo Bills in Week 10, Week 11, wasn't number one on their goal list. It wasn't even on their goal list at all. Going undefeated wasn't on their goal list at all. They had one goal, win Super Bowl. That's it. So everything else is just, to me, it's just, you learn some things from defeats, and this team's going to learn a lot from this loss. But you learn something as Andy. I find myself, as I get older and older, I start buying into Andy Reid, some of his cliches and everything. I mean, you do. Sometimes you win more in wins than you do in losses. Sometimes it's the other way around. There are things to take away from this game. I'm convinced that when and if these teams meet again down the road, you're going to see a different outcome. It won't play out the same way.
I completely agree. We're going to talk about those lessons coming up, folks, here in a little bit. But if one of the things that you're waiting on is a little bit of balance, a little bit of help here or there, I think, honestly, the guy who probably should, you hope, be able to go first is Isiah Pacheco. Maybe they get him back this week and start peppering him in. I don't think it's something like, oh, he's a saver. You throw him in there and Kareem can have a seat. I think it's a bit of a relief factor for still letting Kareem start the ball game, have the bulk of the carries. But I see kind of a 1/3, 2/3 split if that is the case. A, do you think Pacheco is probably the closer to being back on the field? And B, how do you see the split?
First of all, Ryan, kudos to you for getting me back on task, because I just took your first question and just kind of went in the direction that I wanted to go to. So let's get back to the heart of it. As far as getting some of these guys back. I think there's a reasonable chance that this will be Pacheco's first game back. I mean, obviously the Chiefs could still wait a week, but I think there's a pretty good chance you're going to see him this week, and Omenihu's probably going to be a little bit longer. But with Pacheco, and I mean, how do you fit him in? Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the question. I mean, how will the Chiefs normally do it? I mean, normally it would be, a drive share. It's not going to be that, hey, you're going to have Kareem out there for first and second down, and then Pacheco for third down. It could be, but I still think that would be more like a Samaje Perine type role. But to your point, it probably would be maybe 2/3 of the drives are going to be Kareem, a third of the drives might be Pacheco. We'll see. I mean, and Andy Reid can always be a hot hand kind of guy. I mean, if Kareem is out there and he's cranking out some yards, may stick with him. If Pacheco comes in and all of a sudden gets going, might stick with him instead. So I can see the balance getting out a little bit. The one thing is that, in particular with what we've seen this year, I mean, the Chiefs have generally favored the run over the pass, more so than Andy Reid would normally do. So is he going to do that, going forward now that he's got a couple of guys that he really trusts, and maybe as a percentage, has more players that he trusts and knows what he's going to get out of than he does at the receiver position? So is this, going to be a little bit more run heavy? It could be. I mean, they may throw the ball to their backs a little bit more. That was one thing against Buffalo. I was surprised that they didn't really get as much to, was throwing the ball to Kareem a little bit more. They threw the ball to Perine quite a bit, but that was more situation dictated than anything else. But that's how I'll be interested in just seeing how they break up this workload, because the one thing that both these running backs will tell you is that they feed off of workload. So, you're not necessarily going to be able to do that. I mean, even if you run the ball 25 times a game, that's a lot for Andy Reid. 13 and 12 split carries, neither guy's going to be real happy with. 16 and 8 still might not be what either guy's really happy with.
That makes a lot of sense. I have a concept for it, and we're going to talk about reloading this position group coming up later in the show. But first, I want to know the top lessons to take away, and I have one for myself. We'll see what Matt thinks of it coming up next. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. PrizePicks has daily fantasy sports and makes it accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long at PrizePicks. They make it simple, and they even invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So sign up today and you can get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even have to win to receive that 50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Gametime app and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. Super simple. Download that app, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and get that 50 bonus for playing a $5 lineup. Super easy over at PrizePicks. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Zbiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted to a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's used to blame for the next day feeling. Pre-alcohol produces this enzyme to break down that byproduct, get it out of there. Just remember to use Zbiotics as your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel better tomorrow. Go to Zbiotics/LockedOnNFL, learn more, and get 15% off of your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. Zbiotics is backed by 100% guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to Zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off at checkout. Folks, make sure that you check out ChiefsDigest.com or Chiefs Digest, all one word, here on YouTube. You can find more of Matt, as we know you all want. That's what I look for as well. Please check out NFL 33 and RGR football as well. Matt, Lessons from this game. And this is still one of those things, like it's like that piece of grizzle in the back of your teeth that you just can't get out. It's still bothering me days later. And that was Josh Allen's post-game remarks that just hit a nerve with me. And unlike seasons past, the top lesson for me that I'm taking away from this is this is the perfect time, in my opinion, you got to get away from this game and use it as a reset button. You don't get a bye. Your bye felt like 17 years ago at this point. So use the loss, use the fact that it just so happened to work out that you have one of the worst teams in the league that you're about to face. Use this all as a relaxation, resetting mentally, try to get a little bit physically better, and put together a more, I feel, lethal game plan and take the most out of this week that you absolutely can. That's what I'd like to see him do. Do you think there's a better way to approach it?
No, I mean, I think that's the perfect way to approach it. And in particular, because I think one of the lessons to take away from the Buffalo game is that the Chiefs learned is that they're exhausted. Andy Reid mentioned, on Monday during his press conference about one of the things is just, scaling back things and backing off some things a little bit. And, we got specific examples on the offense of, maybe bumping down a little bit of the motions and, pre-snap activity, mostly because, some of it wears you out. There are guys, Xavier Ward, I think you pretty much put motion on every single snap. And, he's the Energizer Bunny, although even he is at a point where he's playing more games than he's ever played before in his career. So, you're going to be hitting that rookie wall. The Chiefs have tried to manage that with a lot of guys. But when I look at that, some of the missed tackles and just some of the mistakes that the Chiefs had against Buffalo, they looked like tired mistakes. And that, I think, was 2 weeks expected after a tough Monday night game, a tough Sunday, game against Denver. Those were 2 grueling, exhausting games. And then you look at the snap counts, and the Chiefs, hey, they went with some of their vets. You look defensively in particular. I was kind of surprised at how many snaps that Karlaftis and Chris Jones and the defensive line got, because I don't think you really want these guys playing 70, 80% of the snaps. You want to back off of them a little bit more. So I think this is the opportunity. This is a chance to kind of work your rotations a little bit, back off the snap counts on your defense a little bit, make things simpler on offense. Just go with your bread and butter. You don't need to be, for this game, for Andy Reid. For Andy Reid, it's, this isn't a necessarily empty out the holster kind of a day. You should be able to go out and run your offense, a vanilla version of your offense against the Carolina Panthers, and do fine. They are a terrible team. Their run defense is terrible. So it's a great week for Isiah Pacheco to be coming back, because you just feed him and Kareem the ball all day. You should be fine.
Yep.
And not have to put a lot of stress on that offense. If you can do that, hey, what I'm describing is kind of, could you end up being in more of a game against Carolina than you want to? It's possible, but at the same time, this is a team the Chiefs should be able to throw their helmets on the field and beat. So take advantage of that. Rest some of your guys, your veterans, your starters. Rotate in, especially some of the young guys, give them some more chances. Just do what you need to do to win and work on some things.
For the record, George Karlaftis, 63 of the 73 defensive snaps. Chris Jones, 62 of them. The only players to play more, Nick Bolton in the secondary. So that tells you, folks, just how much work the 2 primary pass rushers were asked to do. And I love that point, Matt. Joshua Uche needs more time, needs more cycling in. Obviously, the FAU injury puts a crimp in that plan. We'll talk about my guy who seems to be lost to the inactive list forever. We'll see if anything changes there. But I want to go back, because you mentioned one thing that I feel is important, that I think is kind of a half measure. If you take motion, pre-snap motion out of your game plan, even 50%, yes, you save the legs of some players. You also allow yourself, on a season where you are stringing these long drives together, to actually attack a team with a little bit more tempo, without as much preamble to snapping the ball again. And I think in a year when you still want to control the ball and run a lot of plays, that allows you attack with, I think, a little bit more pressure onto the defense. And I think that's something like we saw in the drive where they actually did score late. I think that plays into how this team likes to play, and that might be an advantage.
Yeah, and and to me, hearing Andy Reid say that was a little bit interesting to me, because it makes me think that some of the the pre-snap motions and some of the things that they're, been doing have been maybe a little bit of other guys' influence on the offense, because Andy Reid's pretty old school. I mean, I've asked him about, pre-snap motion before, and one of his core beliefs on it is that you don't do it just for the sake of doing it. You do it because you want to see how the defense reacts. You want to be able to see, hey, what's their coverage? Are they in man or they're in zone? I mean, those are the little things. The last few years, I mean, especially what we've seen, like with Mike McDonald and Miami, there's a lot of pre-snap motion, more and more of it being done because you want to get your guy running at full speed. And there's a lot of cheat motion too, where guys are running towards the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped, and the Chiefs typically don't do that. But I mean, I think it is maybe a little bit more of the influence of some of the other guys on the coaching staff getting a voice in, and now Andy Reid's like, okay, let's just go back to basics here. Let's get back to simple stuff, bread and butter. We don't need to be any fancier than that against Carolina. Let's just focus on the fundamentals, get some things down. And if you're able to do that, then you can get a little trickier. But I think right now he's seeing with this offense, hey, you know what? Guys' minds are scrambled. Maybe their bodies are scrambled a little bit too. So let's slow things down. Let's just get back to basics. Let's give guys a break, as far as, game planning this week and exertion. I mean, I'm not saying he's treating this as a bye week, but I mean, I think you can see that he's at least trying to make this a game that's not as stressful. And that's been a concern for mine, back to the first month of the season. We talked about it, Ryan, is just that, was this team using too much exertion to get some of these wins that was going to cost them later? I think it definitely cost them against Buffalo.
I completely agree with you. That's another way that you have to take the lessons away, reformulate, and reload to get ready to restart this push for the postseason. We're getting into the details on that coming up next. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, and that's right, free online courses right now, including Introduction to Free Market Economics. You can check out some history with the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and even check out The Great American Story, A Land of Hope. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever you want, you can tune in whenever you want, and you can finish whenever you want. You can go deeper with readings and quizzes and discussions, or just sit back and enjoy the lectures. Go over to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. It's at hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Folks, like, sub, hit the bell here. Check us out on audio, and make sure you get over to chiefsdigest.com. Thanks for being with us. Reloading. Yes, you're getting some players back. We have one in particular that I want to discuss in just a second. But before we get there, there's also, I think, a combination of a lesson learned, but also a way to reload for one particular player. I myself was caught off guard a little bit by the inactive listing for Kingsley Suamataia. I think that there is still a place for him to not only get on the field this year, but help this season for this team. Giving him that mental break, and now what we've talked about in a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more simplicity, do you think that's something that can help him reload and possibly get back on the uphill swing of his evolution towards being a starter again?
Yeah, and I wasn't really surprised that the Chiefs made Kingsley an active. I mean, I thought there was a possibility. The question to me was going to be if they trusted Ethan Driscoll at this point to be the backup if they needed him, or whether to use a practice squad elevation on Lucas Niang. I mean, they did have some options, but there was no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs know that, and you can see it from the comments of Matt Nagy in particular, I think, last week. They know that Kingsley's swimming right now. I mean, he's a little bit overwhelmed. The time off was, probably beneficial in some ways, but when he came back, the question is, hey, is it just everything's just too fast for him? Is still stuff swirling in his mind? Is he having to think too much and not react enough? I mean, let's face it. There's plenty and great physical skills there for Kingsley Suamataia. Yeah, a lot of natural skills, things you can't teach that he can still tap into. So the Chiefs aren't giving up on him. I'm not even sure that they've given up on him for this season yet. But there's no doubt. I mean, he needed to reboot. Absolutely. So, hey, if this means that he just doesn't have to worry, for a couple of weeks about being and preparing, the guys talk about, you prepare as a starter, like even if you're not, I mean, if this gives him an opportunity to just focus on a few things and kind of clear the mechanism, if you will, it's great for him. And, what the Chiefs plan to do, I mean, they have options if something were to happen to Wanya Morris or to Jawan Taylor. I mean, you've got Joe Thuney as well. Obviously, Ethan Driscoll was the guy up last week. But I don't think it says anything about, Kingsley other than that they're trying to get him right. This isn't giving up on him in any way, shape, or form. So they still believe in this kid. They still think there's a lot of talent there. But when you as an NFL player, I mean, you get so much overwhelmed in your mind and everything. Guys have needed this before. It's not the first time, not going to be the last time that a high draft pick just needs to restart. And hey, is it going to click? There's no guarantee, but Chiefs still believe in Kingsley.
Yeah, I'm glad that they do. I think this can be a springboard for him. And it's those athletic traits that I think can pay off in the end should he be pressed back into service. And folks, if you missed it, or if you missed Kevin Costner right now on Yellowstone, I know a lot of people are in mourning. Go watch For the Love of the Game, the forgotten baseball movie that Costner did.
Got the reference. Thank you.
Enjoy that. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. Now back to restarting and reloading. The most intriguing thing for me, as you were pointing out so well earlier about George Karlaftis and Chris Jones having to play so much, I don't know if this week is the right week. Charles will tell you he's ready to go tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. But Charles Omenihu's return, whether it be immediate or just imminent, I think is also a key to reloading the rotation here, giving those guys some snaps off as he works into pace, as well as rubbing off on guys like Uche, who can still use some utilization, right? I think there's some things that he does really well. I think his 4 snaps will give you a clue as to maybe what isn't working yet, and some veteran leadership from a guy who plays a lot of edge could probably help there. Same thing for what you're trying to do with FAU when he's able to go. Same thing from just a group mentality to attack. What can he bring, and how desperately do they need Charles back is probably the top question.
Yeah, I mean, well, consider this. I mean, you really look at the numbers. I mean, the Chiefs, Chris Jones has been talking about the fact that he's disappointed in their sack numbers. And, really over the last month, I mean, a lot of their quarterback pressure has been coming from the blitz. They didn't have any sacks whatsoever against, Buffalo. Yeah, Josh Allen's difficult to get down, but still, that's disappointing for a Chiefs team, and especially when that their 2 Super Bowl runs were fueled by the fact they had 55 sacks in each of those seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have 19 sacks right now, Ryan. That's just not this Chiefs team. It's just not. So they need to be able to get more production. I know when I asked, Coach Rito on Monday about, that he pointed to the fact that he feels like, hey, they're still getting the same number of pressures and the quarterback hits, just not translating into sacks. That's still a problem. I mean, sacks are big plays, and big plays are what this team depends on. So, if it is a matter of Omenihu coming back and giving them one of 2 things, and we really want both these things. I mean, one, they'd love that there's some production there, but 2, just being able to, give Karlaftis, give Mike Dana more time off so that they're fresher, they have more energy, have more strength, have more speed, all of these things. I mean, that's good. I mean, you gave the numbers there on Karlaftis' snap counts. If his snap counts are that high, his pass rushers are not as effective as they could and should be. So they need to get a deeper rotation. And, once again, it plays into, Joshua Uche. Right now, he's going to be a 3rd down guy. Well, if you're not getting into 3rd down in passing situations, or you're getting into thirds and it's 3rd and 2, Joshua Uche is not going to be on the field. So, that's something that, once again, I mean, the Chiefs need to, they certainly need to be better on 1st and 2nd down, but a pathway to that is making sure your guys are fresh, making sure that you're not, making sloppy, tired mistakes, and that comes with workload. So once the Chiefs get into January, they want it to be that, hey, Karlaftis and Dana's numbers and snaps are a little bit, down. They don't want them to be at 80%, especially for Karlaftis, close to 90%. Don't want that. You want those 2 guys to have a healthy workload, but then you want Omenihu and Felix to be able to come in and give you a decent amount of snaps, and you want Uche to not just be a completely 3rd down guy, but you're also going to want him to just be able to get a drive or 2 on his own. Certainly be somebody you can put out there, in some 2nd and long situations at least. I mean, he's never going to be a 1st down guy, a 3 down guy or anything, but you do want him to be out there anytime there's a passing situation. He'll get there eventually, but part of it too is you got to put teams in passing situations.
Yep. It's all prepping so you can do what you do, just like we do around here. Matt preps you for the next ball day game to come. We're going to have a crossover tomorrow. We are going to have our game preview. Do not miss it, and get over to Chiefs Digest to see everything that Matt's doing there. Matt, thanks for the time. Setting us on the right road towards this recovery game, I'm going to call it.
We all need some recovery this week, Ryan. Take care, my friend.
Have a good one, folks. Make sure you like, sub, hit that bell, check out our sponsors, check out Chiefs Digest, RGR Football, and NFL 33. We appreciate your time, and we will talk to you tomorrow.